My name is John Passfield, and the title of this reading will be John and Mother Goose, Video 16, John's Reaction to Mother Goose, Part 2. Here's my novella, John and Mother Goose, The Carnival of Tales, John and Mother Goose on the cover. Here's the summary on the back cover. While driving his granddaughter home from daycare, John suddenly finds himself standing in the midway of a carnival of Mother Goose fairy tales. He's greeted by Jack, of Jack and Jill fame, who tells John that Mother Goose is expecting him as she has a role for him to play. But what does Mother Goose want? Why does she think of John as a writer of detective stories? And why, when she meets John, does she greet him as almost a long-lost son? And for that matter, why do so many of the fairy tale characters have different stories that they want John to write for them, instead of the ones in which they have lived for hundreds of years? Well, John's not a mythical character. He's only a human, after all. But can he save the Mother Goose Carnival? Can he solve the mystery of the vanishing fairy tales? No. This is part 2 of John's reaction to Mother Goose, and part 1 of John's reaction to Mother Goose, which I read in an earlier video presentation. I mentioned that John is not what I would call an active character, that he does not seize the plot and move it forward, but that he is rather a contemplative character, a character who goes along with the plot that is being generated by others, in this case by Mother Goose, while wondering just exactly what is going on. He wonders what Mother Goose wants, and he wonders especially about her relationship with Jack, of Jack and Jill fame. So, in Chapter 7, John speaks to Mother Goose, and then John thinks to himself. So let's go to page 53 of Chapter 7 and have a look. Oops. Here we are. Okay, so first of all, John speaks to Mother Goose. Now, if you had been reading the book as printed, you would have all of the information that has gone on between them, but I'm just isolating his reaction to Mother Goose. I've been speaking to your characters, Mother Goose. They've told me some interesting things. Are you aware that many have stories they'd like to tell? Stories other than the ones that they act on stage? Would you like me to tell you some of them? Would you like to consult the source? None of them told me they hadn't told you, but it strikes me that this is the case. Perhaps you could call a meeting like the one in the character tent. You could acknowledge their past accomplishments. It's always good to start with praise, and then ask them where they would like to go from here. Perhaps I exaggerate the danger. Perhaps I exaggerate the danger. The myths are in peril, it seems to me. Offer to make a few adjustments. Try to head Jack off at the pass. Wrest the reins out of his hands. Turn the herd, at the edge of the cliff. If you don't, you'll have a character stampede. So that's what John says to Mother Goose. That's his warning to her about something that John finds disturbing at the Mother Goose Carnival of Tales. Now, John thinks to himself, Mother Goose does not hear me. Her ears are as pure as petals, new minted in the spring. They will not hear of iniquity, of deviousness, of subterfuge. She thinks of Jack as one of her children. She has no ear for an unkind word. Oh, Mother Goose is so amazing, an early female entrepreneur. She single-handedly brought the fairy tales to the fore. Where would I be without these stories? I used to sing them in the sand pile. And I'm sure it's the same with every writer. These stories are the nourishment for the brain. Life comes at at us as adult chaos. These stories show us the patterns of childlike thought. These stories are paths through tangled brambles. These yarns are the lanterns that light our way. These tales are the girders of the bridges we walk across. These tales cannot live without characters. They're all conspiring to walk away. What a shame if these nursery tales are allowed to die. So those are John's thoughts in chapter 7. Let's go to chapter 9. Now in chapter 8, he's with Jack, but we're talking about John and Mother Goose. So we're going to chapter 9. I'll get the page ready at a time here. Okay. In chapter 9, John stands in the midway as he bids farewell to Mother Goose in a combination of communication with each other and a private thought. So they talk to each other, but each has private thoughts. John's thoughts are reported in this novella, but Mother Goose's thoughts are not actually in print, you might say. Okay? So here's John with Mother Goose, a combination of open speaking and private thought. We stand here on the midway, Mother Goose and I can't tell her I've saved her carnival. She wouldn't hear any ill of Jack. But human warmth has passed between us, and that is a gain. I open my arms out wide and give her a hug. A nice big thank you and hope we meet again hug. If she thinks that I'm a detective writer no less, well, it's flattering. I'm very touched. I would hate to disillusion her. I'll let her continue to think so of me. And as for thinking of me as a son, well, that's just fine with me. From now on, I'll think of myself as one of her brood. You know, John, says Mother Goose, I believe I've read all of your detective books, except perhaps one or two. In fact, I believe I've read them all except just one. Many's the night they've kept me up until the dawn. And then we go on. The hug is warm and prolonged. Well, says Mother Goose, it's time for you to go, John. I have plenty to do around here. There's no one busier than a mother hen in a storm. There's just one more little mystery. There's just one other niggling thing. Mother Goose is looking me squarely in the eye. I said I'm a long-time reader. I just love the books you write. There's just one that has so far eluded me. Now, if you'll just recite the list of your titles. There's a lot of them, I know, but no doubt you have the list on the tip of your tongue. I'm sure that I can tell you precisely which one. You wrote a tale about two writers, as I recall. Well, if you've been following the story so far, there's some interesting surprises in that last interchange between John and Mother Goose. John finds himself in a rather uncomfortable situation. Being a contemplative character, John decides not to object. In the early stages of the story, when Mother Goose greets him as almost a long-lost son and mentions that she knows him as a writer of detective novels, both of which John knows to be untrue. When Mother Goose says that she has brought him to the Mother Goose Carnival of Tales in order to have him figure out why so many of her fairy tale characters have been going missing, he decides not to tell her that since he's not a detective, he can't possibly figure out what has happened to them. However, as the story goes on, despite the fact that John is not a detective, John decides that he has figured out exactly what is happening behind Mother Goose's back. The major clue, he feels, is that many of the mythicals, the characters in the verses, want to move on from their roles in the fairy tales for which they've been created and to act and presumably to live in other stories. Well, John seizes the plot and puts an end to the aspirations of the mythicals, but now he finds it very hard to tell Mother Goose that he has saved her carnival of tales. To do so, he seems to reason, would be to tell her of the deeper thoughts, not only of Jack and Jill fame, but of Jill and many of the other mythical characters. So whether he's right or wrong, John decides that he will let Mother Goose go on thinking that all of the mythical characters are perfectly happy with their current time-honored roles in the Mother Goose Carnival of Tales, allowing her to continue thinking of her domain as a happy, cheerful world in which to live. However, as a reader of this novella, I wonder whether John's assessment of the Mother Goose temperament is as accurate as John believes it to be. So, have a look at that last section again, if you have a copy of the book, of course. Why does she look him in the eye, and why does she ask him that last question about the book, about two writers? Well, that's a mystery, and I'll leave it at that. So once again, this is my novella, John and Mother Goose, The Carnival of Tales. It's found on Amazon, or you can find more information. It's found at my publisher's website, roxmillspress.com, where again, there's more information. And if you go to my website, which is johnpassfield.ca, there are two free books. I write a planning notebook as I plan and write the novella, and I write a reflective journal as I polish the novella, and both of them are full-length books. They're both there for free on my website at johnpassfield.ca if you just click on the cover icon. And lastly, I'll say thank you for watching this video.